The rain hadn't stopped for 3 days, turning the New York streets into shimmering mirrors reflecting neon lights. Detective Sergei Markov, squinting, watched this deluge from his office window at the 17th precinct. Tomorrow he would turn 58. 58 years, 30 of which he had given to this city, this precinct, this unending battle against the shadows lurking in every corner. A phone call pulled him from his thoughts. The duty officer's voice was tense, with a faint hint of shock. Markov, urgent, La Nostra Cucina, Domenico Moretti. Sergei felt a chill run down his spine. Domenico Moretti, the Don. An old lion, one of the last old-school Dons, a man whose name was whispered in certain circles. His death wasn't just a murder, it was an earthquake. La Nostra Cucina, a small but exceedingly respectable Italian restaurant in Little Italy, known for its impeccable reputation and for the fact that its regulars never saw or heard anything. It was there, at his favorite table, in a secluded corner, that Moretti was found. He sat, leaning back in his chair, with a glass of unfinished Chianti before him. His face was calm, almost peaceful, were it not for the neat bullet hole precisely in the middle of his forehead. Death had been instantaneous. When Markov arrived at the scene, the restaurant was already cordoned off. Forensic experts were methodically collecting evidence, camera flashes illuminating the somber grandeur of the hall. Lieutenant O'Malley, his longtime partner, met him at the entrance, his face pale. "Clean, Sergei. Too clean. No signs of forced entry. No noise. The staff swears they heard nothing. Only the waiter who brought the bill discovered him." Markov nodded, surveying the room. Expensive interior, subdued lighting, the smell of garlic and tomatoes, now mixed with the acrid scent of gunpowder and formalin. "Someone knew his habits," Markov muttered. "Knew where he sat, when he arrived, when he left, and how to get in unnoticed. Street cameras didn't capture anything. Either they were bypassed or the killer was inside." "Inside," Markov said confidently. "The Don wouldn't let a stranger get that close. It was personal." Sergei approached the body. Moretti was dressed in an immaculate suit. A heavy gold signet ring gleamed on his finger. Before him on the table lay a bill folded in half and a small but elegant penknife with which Moretti had apparently just peeled an orange. Next to the knife was a thin, almost invisible strip of orange peel, curled into a spiral. Markov looked around carefully. No shell casings. The killer had used a suppressor, taken the evidence. "Anything unusual?" he asked one of the forensic experts. "Only this, detective." The man pointed to a small, almost imperceptible mark on the underside of the table. "It looks like a cigar burn. Expensive, hand-rolled." Markov leaned closer. Indeed, a barely visible mark from a smoldering cigar, left perhaps in a moment of waiting or nervousness. But Moretti never smoked cigars. He preferred a pipe, and certainly wouldn't have smoked in a restaurant. The next few days were spent in endless interrogations. The restaurant staff, as expected, proved deaf and blind. They had seen Moretti, yes, but no one sitting with him, no one emerging from behind him. They were all terrified. Fear hung in the air, thick and palpable. Markov knew this wasn't just fear of the police. It was fear of those who could kill Moretti. He delved into the world of Don Moretti. Old connections, new enemies, redistribution of spheres of influence. Moretti was a conservative, adhering to old rules. He disapproved of drugs, cybercrime, all these new dirty monies flowing into the city. This made him a target for those who wanted change. The main suspect, naturally, became Antonio Rizzo, a young, ambitious capo from the Moretti family. Rizzo was the complete opposite of the Don, brazen, ruthless, hungry for power and new opportunities. He openly conflicted with Moretti over the family's expanding influence into synthetic drug trafficking and cyber fraud. Markov summoned Rizzo for questioning. Antonio was impeccable. Expensive suit, cold gaze, not a hint of nervousness. He denied involvement, providing an airtight alibi. "The Don was like a father to me, detective. I would never." Rizzo's voice was calm, but his eyes showed neither grief nor regret, only firmness. "Fathers sometimes get in their children's way, Tony." Markov looked at him intently. "Especially if the children want too much." Rizzo merely smirked. "That's not our case, detective." Markov felt Rizzo was lying, but there was no evidence. The alibi was confirmed. He returned to the details. The cigar. Who among Rizzo's circle smoked expensive cigars? Virtually everyone. That didn't narrow the circle. The penknife and the orange. Strange. Moretti had always been meticulous. A peeled orange and a knife left on the table seemed a bit careless for him. A week passed. The case hit a dead end. Pressure from above was mounting. Politics demanded quick results, a public accusation, but Markov couldn't. He felt he was missing something. Again and again, he reread reports, reviewed crime scene photos. And then his gaze caught on a photograph of the table, the orange peel, a spiral. Moretti was left-handed. He would have held the knife in the photo in his right hand if he had peeled the orange while sitting at the table as he was found, but he was left-handed, and the peel spiral was curled as a right-handed person would have done it. It was a small detail, but it struck Markov's eye. Moretti would never have done that with his right hand. He was too accustomed to his left. So Moretti hadn't peeled the orange, or he hadn't left the knife himself. Someone else had. Markov returned to the restaurant. He asked O'Malley to gather all the staff who had worked that evening. "Who among you is right-handed?" he asked. Everyone raised their hands. "Who among you peeled oranges for Moretti?" Several hands again. "Who would leave the knife like this?" Markov showed the photograph. Silence. "Are you sure no one sat with Moretti?" Markov's voice hardened. "No one approached his table to talk?" At that moment, one of the young waiters, Giovanni, turned pale and lowered his eyes. "I saw Signor Moretti talking with Signor Rizzo about an hour before he was found. Rizzo left before Moretti finished dinner." O'Malley looked at Markov in surprise. "Why didn't you say anything about this earlier, Giovanni?" The waiter trembled. "Signor Rizzo, he told me not to tell anyone. He said it would be bad for me." "What were they doing?" Markov asked. They were arguing, quietly, but I heard fragments, about old rules, about new ventures. Rizzo was very angry. He was peeling an orange as he spoke. I saw him put the knife on the table when he stood up. And the cigar." "Does Rizzo smoke cigars?" Markov turned to O'Malley. "He's known to prefer Cuban ones," O'Malley confirmed. "Expensive." The puzzle began to come together. Rizzo had come to talk with Moretti, perhaps to persuade him one last time, perhaps to warn him, or to inform him of his decision. He sat with him, smoked a cigar, nervously peeled an orange. At some point, the argument escalated. Rizzo stood up, leaving the knife and orange. But Moretti was killed later. It wasn't Rizzo. Or... "Rizzo left," Markov repeated, "and then Moretti was killed. Did someone come after Rizzo?" "No, detective," Giovanni shook his head. "No one approached his table. Only I to bring the bill. He was alone."
Markov suddenly felt a chilling realization. He looked at Giovanni. "When you discovered the body, Giovanni, what exactly did you see?" "I brought the bill. Signor Moretti was sitting. I thought he was asleep. I approached closer and saw blood." "And what about the knife and the orange?" "They were on the table, just like in the photo." "And you didn't see anyone else approach the table?" "No." Sergei Markov closed his eyes. He understood. No shell casings. The killer took them. But why leave the knife and the orange? Because they were part of a performance.
He looked at Giovanni. In the waiter's eyes, there was not only fear, but something else. Too much nervousness. Too many details he had forgotten until this moment. "Giovanni, you said Rizzo left the knife on the table, but Moretti was left-handed. Did you ever peel oranges for him before?" "Yes, signor. He liked to peel removed in one long spiral." "And you did it with your right hand?" The waiter flinched. "When you brought the bill, Moretti was dead. You saw the knife and orange left by Rizzo. What did you do?" Giovanni's eyes filled with tears. "I was scared. Signor Rizzo, he's so terrifying. I thought it was him. I took the knife, and I left it so it would look like Signor Moretti had peeled the orange himself. I didn't want them to think Rizzo had been with him. I wanted to protect myself. He threatened me." "Did you see Rizzo kill Moretti?" Markov's voice was quiet but piercing. Giovanni shook his head, tears streaming down his cheeks. No, Signor Rizzo left. Moretti was sitting alone. I walked away, and when I returned with the bill—" "You brought the bill. He was sitting alone, and suddenly he was dead." Markov looked at O'Malley. "Giovanni, you didn't see the killer because the killer was—" Markov sharply turned to O'Malley. "O'Malley, do you remember how Moretti always paid?" O'Malley frowned. "Cash, always, and always left generous tips. He always paid personally. When the waiter brought the bill, Moretti would take it, check it, place the money. So what?" "The bill was on the table, folded in half." Markov pointed to the photograph. "Moretti didn't get to pay it. He was killed when the waiter brought him the bill." O'Malley looked at Markov, his eyes widening. "You mean, who brought the bill?" Markov's voice was steel. I brought the bill. Markov stepped close to him. "You were the last one to see him alive, and the first to see him dead. And you lied, Giovanni. Lied about the knife, lied about hearing nothing. And you were the only one who could approach him unnoticed." No, he began to choke. "I didn't—" "Why, Giovanni? Money? Or did someone pay you? Rizzo, did he promise you something?" He promised I would become a manager, that I would be rich. He said Signor Moretti was in everyone's way, that he was old. He gave me the gun. He said no one would know. I was supposed to shoot when I brought the bill. In the restaurant's noise, no one would hear. And then take the casing and leave the knife, so everyone would think it was Rizzo. I didn't want to, but he threatened my family." Giovanni's story, though disjointed, was horrifying and plausible. Rizzo, this cold-blooded and calculating player, exploited the young waiter's fear and ambition. He knew Moretti's habits, knew the schedule, knew that Giovanni would be the last one to approach the table. And he cleverly staged the scene, leaving the knife and cigar either to deflect suspicion if Giovanni failed, or to bolster the false accusation against himself if Markov had followed the obvious path. But he underestimated Markov and his attention to detail. Antonio Rizzo was arrested the next day. He remained calm as his rights were read to him, but a shadow of disappointment flickered in his eyes. He was caught not because of his brute force, but because of his excessive cunning and underestimation of the old detective. Giovanni received a mitigated sentence for cooperation, but his life was broken.
Markov sat in his office, looking at the rain again. Moretti was dead, Rizzo behind bars. Justice had triumphed, but its taste was bitter. The old mafia was fading, giving way to a new one, more ruthless, more calculating, ready to use anyone who succumbed to fear or greed. He looked at his hands. They trembled. 58 years old, 30 years of service, and he still felt that the fight was just beginning, and that it would never end.